just so you know who I am, obviously I'm Whitney. I own a studio here in Portland, Oregon. I've been in business for about 14 years. This is a little bit of my work that I'm going to show you, as well as a shot of me. This is a shot my husband took of me. I'm not currently pregnant. I do have a little baby, but it's a nice shot and I still like it, so I'm going to throw that in there. This is a shot of my daughter now. She's actually 10 months old, and you can tell she's clearly thrilled with the fact that her parents are photographers. I specialize, as Brian said, mostly in kids and babies and families. I do shoot a little bit of seniors, and I only do a couple weddings a year. We've really cut back. I used to shoot a lot of weddings in the past, but now I've taken all of my focus straight to the kids and the babies. And as he said, you may have seen some of these images. I have been in some of On One's ads, as well as they do use them for samples. If you have a wild hair, you're welcome to check out my website. It's blissstudio.net. Brian will put that in at the end. And then on the blog, there is a recent post of our studio, if you're curious and would like to see a little bit about what it looks like. We did a little bit of remodeling here recently, so it's kind of a fun little post. A couple more, I think. I don't know if I'm going too fast here, but just a couple little things and me and who I am here. So I decided to teach this webinar today on albums, because when I look at albums, that is definitely who I am and who my studio is. My clients come to me for albums. I do wall portraits, I sell loose prints, I sell other things, but the main goal for me is to sell an album to every client that comes to me. I do them for seniors, I do them for weddings. I have a unique thing that I'm going to go into about my baby albums as well that is a pretty big deal that people come to me. When I shoot for albums. I am assuming that my client's going to buy one whether they do or not, so I am getting those detail shots. I am getting the storytelling shots that I need to be able to create an album. There's a lot of shots that you may not shoot because you know that client's not going to buy a wall portrait of those feet, but when I do an album, I know that that is going to be a page or a background or a piece of the story that I'm trying to tell. Today, I am going to talk a little bit about album templates and how to customize them as well and how to change them, but I also want you to see kind of some of the thoughts and the inspiration behind designing an album, which can in turn be used for the templates. There's customization that you're going to need no matter if you start with a template or if you start from scratch. You still need to make the album fit your client, your style, and the job that you shot. You may start with a template that's the wrong colors, or it's a little bit too funky and you need to change out some of the graphics to make it girly, or a little bit more traditional. So you still may have to do a little bit of customization with a template, even if that gives you a starting point. So from there, let's get started. The main album design that I do in my studio is going to be my baby books. So I do want you guys to see a little bit about a baby album. So this will give you an idea of where I start. This is a first-year album. This particular album has 4 sessions in it. It has a maternity session that you'll see at the beginning here, as well as a newborn, a 6-month, and a 1-year. I do have clients that will do a 9-month or a 3-month. Not everybody does maternity, but some will add the maternity. But it's a storybook album of their first year. I'm going to flip through these pages while I talk here so you can kind of get a little idea. There is a lot of text. It has quotes in it. It has letters from mom and dad. This particular one actually has a older brother and an older sister that are pretty significantly older than the third child. So I have brother and sister both wrote a letter to the little boy. These albums I do custom for my client as far as including the story that goes along with them. The more that comes from my client, the more it's their album. All of my baby albums are 24 pages. I design them, I send them to my lab. The lab that I happen to use is White House Custom Color, so a lot of the templates are going to be fit for their specifications. This is just an 8x8 album, 24 pages, and I get the prints back and I send them to Renaissance the Book, is who I use for my albums, and I have them mounted in the album. It's important that I print them myself and be able to do a quality check before I send them to mount in the album. I know a lot of people can send their files directly to their album company, which is fine as well, but with something like this, I know that there's a lot of extra things that I need to triple check before I have it mounted in the book with all of the text and stuff that's included in this. How are we doing so far?
We're doing great. There was a question Victoria asked about what book company you use. I put the link to White House Custom Color, but what was the
other one's Renaissance the Book, And they're in New York, and they do all of my higher end albums. So my baby books are going to be a higher end album. My wedding albums are a little bit higher end album. I do some press printed books that are more like a yearbook. If those of you that don't know what those are, I do those through White House Custom Color, and that's going to be more of a boudoir session or a senior session or something that's not as big as my baby books or a wedding album. So Renaissance is a little bit of an investment. I mean, they're not $50 albums. You're looking at $300 to $600 albums. So it is a little bit more of an investment. And that does not include the prints. I do that separately.
I'm putting the link to that right now in the chat module. I just looked it up.
So while he's doing that, here's just another one really quick. I'll try to go through this one a little bit faster. This is the one we're going to work on. This is Baby Hayden. This is another baby that I've done. You can see it's kind of has the same style to it. It's separated into sections. We're going to start with the newborn, then we'll go into the 6 month, and we'll go into the year. If you can kind of tell why we're looking through, the color theme is the same. This is kind of blues, greens, browns, pretty consistent. The clothing that I had my little guy bring is pretty consistent throughout as well. That is something that's a little bit in the pre-planning. When I know my clients are a baby planner, I know we're working on an album, I try to make sure that they do bring something within that color scheme at every shoot. So if you have a little boy and their baby, their nursery, say, is blues and browns, every shoot I have them bring something blue and browns that kind of ties into the book a little bit. That does not mean to say if they don't have our favorite red shirt that they can't bring it, but I try to have them kind of keep with the theme a little bit as we go along. I'm going to look at this as a whole, actually, for you guys to see. So here it's a little bit easier to see that there is, the greens are the same throughout, the blues, the browns. And in doing so, this is going to bring me to a big spot of my inspiration, which is, let me actually make sure I didn't skip anything here. Hold on one second. I think we're actually all good. Okay, so something that I do that's a little bit different, and maybe other people do this, I'm not sure, but this is called my inspiration board. For every album that I design, no matter if I start with a template or if I start from scratch, I start with an inspiration board. What this does is, for me, sometimes I'm working on a couple albums at a time, or I'm just trying to gather my thoughts together and get a starting point. So I create this board. All this is an 8x8, same size as the album, blank slate in Photoshop that I start with, and I make little color blocks so that I know what my colors are. I will put any graphics that I'm going to use within the album, fonts. That's one thing that I'll tend to forget if I go back and look at an album later, is what fonts I was using. So I'll make sure that the fonts are consistent throughout the album, and any other little pieces that I want to throw onto my inspiration board to keep that consistency.
I have a question that I'm going to ask, because that's one of the benefits of running the webinar. And also because Whitney's not new to this. She's done this with us before, and I know this will be a question that comes up. One, where do you go to find fonts? Or is that something you're going to cover later?
I did have it later, but it doesn't really matter actually when I tell you. We will talk about text a little bit, but I do use the Photoshop ones that it includes, but I do look for fonts. You can search free fonts online. There's a website called misprintedtype.com.
I'm going to get that URL for everyone right now.
Okay, misprintedtype.com. They've got some pretty cool, funky fonts. There's like porcelain, I think selfish. There's some funky ones that you can get from there. Well, I can keep going here. There's another spot. He kind of skipped me ahead a little bit, but I might backtrack a little bit.
That's fine.
Okay, so back to the inspiration board. Finding inspiration, finding fonts, finding colors, that is actually pretty important. So the places I will look, here is one site here. This is Kuhler.adobe.com. This is a great place to look for color inspiration. So if you're trying to look for a color scheme that complements, or you want to work in blues but you want to see kind of what its opposites are, you can play around in this. It's a fun place to go, and then I will use this as my inspiration for the album I'm going to design. There's also Pinterest. I don't know how many people of you out there have been hearing of Pinterest. It's my secret addiction. I think it's everybody's secret addiction at this point. Pinterest.com. People post these to their boards. They are awesome. This is me. Actually, you can, if you want to follow and are familiar with it, I'm Bliss Whitney. And this is a board. This is my color inspiration board that I have. What do you need on there?
Just don't move, because I'm going to put your Pinterest URL So don't.
So you should see it, pinterest.com/BlissWhitney. This particular board is /color inspiration, but you can search all my boards on there. You don't have to follow me. They're everywhere. I mean, I find these all the time, but they're just taking their colors and pulling them off of photos, but it's still fun to see the spread. And this is exactly what I would do on my inspiration board, is I would pull one of these spreads, and that's the colors that I would use for my fonts, for my backgrounds, for anything that I'm doing in an album.
I just want to jump in there really quickly. One, to give Whitney just time to recompose, but the other two to
Actually,
simply...
there was one more on here. Keep going.
Yeah, it's more... I just want to illustrate to you just how, to what lengths photographers like Whitney, working professional photographers, go through to create something that's not necessarily cookie cutter, and to make sure that each of her clients who, are paying clients feel like they're getting their own refined product. So this is one of the reasons why I'm so excited for Whitney to do this webinar today, is because I think everyone needs to see this. Whenever I would go, I remember the last time I went to Whitney's and Dan's place here in Portland to their house, Whitney was showing me her inspiration boards, and I thought it was just brilliant that she did that. It's kind of like the custom architecture for what the album's going to look like. So personally, I do want to thank you, because I think it's really valuable information for our webinar goers.
Right. I know somebody's compliment that I talk fast. I'm going to take that as a compliment. Just kidding. I talk way too fast. I apologize. The good thing is this is recorded, so you can go back and listen again. Just kidding. I'll try to slow down. I apologize, but that is me. Back to the font thing again while we're still on this page. If you guys see this one smack here in the middle, it says cute free fonts. Love these fonts, and I have actually went through and downloaded every single one of them. The Simply Glamorous is one of my favorites. These work great. This is, something I found on Pinterest. So somebody else did the research for me. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. And here I went ahead and did download those, and I use them for my baby book. So I would definitely check that out. And if you're not a Pinterest user and you need to have somebody send you a invite, let me know and I will send you one. For some reason, you have to be invited to join Pinterest. So yes, looking for inspiration outside of the box works great. Being able to have a starting point for your albums, I think, can also help gather your thoughts together. If you have a job and you know kind of the colors or what the client was wearing, or what they had, this will give you a start. If you want to use a scrolly, graphics, or if you want to use something more girly, and this way you at least have it in a spot. The good news is this is just something that I'll open up in Photoshop and have it off to the side, and then as I'm working through the pages in the album, I can just drag or color select the colors off it, drag the graphics over, do whatever I need to make sure that I use those same pieces. And that doesn't mean you can't go outside the box and use something else, but if I do use something else, a different font or different graphic, I will in turn take it and drag it back onto my inspiration board so it's still all together in one spot. Everybody still doing good?
Yeah, we've got some really good questions that I'm holding off answering myself when you're ready to take them.
Okay, I'm ready to start working on pages. So if anybody has any questions up until now, I'd like to go ahead and address them.
Yeah, so there were a few that I actually really liked. First one was from Gary, and he was asking, for these images, are you the one that furnishes the props?
Sometimes yes, depending on what you're looking at. I am a jack of all trades. I'm a little bit of a crafter as well, so I have hats that I've crocheted and I make and sell, and I actually have them in my studio, so I do use those. I do encourage my clients to bring their own things. I'm pretty simple about props, so I really don't want people bringing too many props. You'll see in this little baby book, I do have a little basket. I have that in the studio. This is a little piece of chalkboard that I can write on. I do have a few simple things, little suitcase, little chairs. I'm pretty simple on the props. I think if you get too far overdoing it, it loses my Bliss style, I guess I could say. So I'm more about, faces and really showcasing who the child is. This was their hat that they brought. Hats are definitely great for babies.
And also to your point, if bring up, is it this image here? Yeah. So was this taken behind the studio?
Across the street.
So I've been to Whitney's, to Bliss Studio, and one of the things that I recommend to everyone, even if you don't have a studio, the point is Whitney does a masterful job of utilizing her surroundings. And now she's lucky because right next to her is this beautiful kind of a wooded fieldish area. And so,
So I'm going to tease him because this is a path behind my studio, a walking path. It's okay. It's not the greatest, but you would never know. This is a parking lot. This is literally the parking lot that you drive through. That's the wall behind my studio. I'm kind of laughing at him a little because I'm in an industrial park. It's okay. It's not the greatest, but I'm back in the corner, and there is a little area that there's a walking path that's down below. Again, seriously, this is the parking lot. People park on the other side. The basket, this is literally in the parking lot. There's a little area that has some little ivy that I just kind of throw the baby in. I mean, it's seeing and using what you have around you to its potential, and I don't always have the availabilities to drive 30 miles to find someplace, so I will use the surroundings right around my studio. That has nothing to do with album templates, but you know.
No. It does. Not necessarily the template itself, but my point is to get. Well, first of all, the template is useless without the really cool images. So if you don't have good images to put them in, the album, it's kind of like people who use kind of like HDR to salvage a shoddy shot. You want the great image. You have to be a good photographer. You have to be a good stylist, and you have to be good with the people you're shooting.
Yeah, and that goes back to just thinking through your album before you actually do your album. So your album design starts at that pre-consultation. If you meet with your client before and get a feeling that that's what they want, or you don't care if that's what they want, but that's what you really want them to have, I mean, you need to start thinking about that ahead of time. Because this is something special for me, I do know that they are getting it. They sign up for a baby plan. They know that they're getting their album at the end of the year. So we're already planning for that. I'm already telling them to save all of the baby stats or the information. You know, okay, what color's your nursery? You know, I start asking those questions right at their consultation. Then when they come in for their newborn session, we're already on it. We already know the theme we're doing. We already kind of have an idea of, or at least I do, of who my client is, because you're doing multiple shoots. When you're trying to get multiple shoots into an album, it does make it difficult if it's too chaotic. I mean, if it's all over the place and doesn't have the same feel and style, their album's not going to look complete. And I mean, if you look at this one, I hope you guys can tell. I mean, there's definitely a style throughout this album, not even just in the style of the design as much as the style of the images. It all kind of flows together.
Cool.
Do you have any other ones?
Yeah, there's a few people asking the same question about where do you find the graphics, like the vectors and the...
So that's half of why we're here. They came from On One. So any of the graphics are going to be from Photo Frame, and I'll pull that up here a little bit. I also have some of mine hand-drawn. I have a really young sister who is very talented, so this little bee she hand drew for me, and I will have her do a few little drawings for me that I'll tie in. If this template will be for sale on one site at the marketplace, and it's not there yet, but I think that's getting uploaded here pretty soon from what I understand, but the little bee will be on there and some of these other graphics. Okay.
Cool. And yeah, we'll go over the marketplace at the end of the webinar.
Okay, so let's keep going. So that's kind of all the information I have for you on the inspiration, but let's go move on into working on a little bit of albums. For those of you that have never seen a template before, this is what that particular album looks like in a template form. Lots of black boxes. Some of the templates, I can actually look down at this wedding one, will have gray boxes as well, and that's just to be able to show you the difference. There's an image that goes behind these black boxes. There's an image that goes here. But for this particular one, it's going to be just black boxes. There's no overlapping, so you can tell how many images. This is for a 24-page book. The ones that are completely blank are intended to be a full spread image. And I know that when some people create templates, they think that you need to have way too many images on every single page and, you know, get as much information as you can when you're selling it. But to me, my templates need to have the look that I intend for them at the end. And I do make full spread images. I mean, they have impact. You can see on the image, on the actual album. Sorry, wrong one here. The big screen. It's your side by side. So these are your two images here. And the one, actually it goes the other way around, but the one on the left is going to be your full spread. So I try to include those. Those have the impact. I don't need to have, 9 images on every single page. In fact, the ones that have a block of 9 typically have that one right on the other side. So there's one solid print with the other one, so it's not too busy. If I try to do, 9 on both of these, it would be too busy. I think that that's an important thing when you're designing as well, or at least for me, is to, I'm going to say photo diarrhea, and I don't mean to be rude, but you don't want to put too much in there. You need to put just what tells the story, just what does its job and does it good. You don't want to just throw every image on the page. One thing for me, I will let my clients go through and I will have them select some favorites. They'll come in for their viewing. I do have them come into the studio. They sit with me. We go through all of the images, and I have them select favorites. I do not promise them they're all going to go in the album. I just say, I just want to know which ones you like. And in all honesty, I'm going to put whatever ones I want in the album or whatever does the best job no matter what. And I have not had any client be upset with me. But I want them to feel like they're involved in the process. Excuse me. So I have them come in, select their favorites. I use Lightroom. So I'll just go through and 5-star the images that they chose. And then from those images, that's what I'll use into the album. They may have 30 favorites, but only like 15 are going to go in the album. And that's okay. I need to have them pick just so I know what they love, but I still want to pick the appropriate ones to put in it. So in the album template, let's actually work on a page. I feel like I'm going to jip you guys here. So let's pull up this page here. So this is page 19 of the album. So this is a template. It's already together. Yes, it's fine. Obviously, for a different album, I need to change out the text. I may not want this 8 and 11 here. The color may not match. It kind of depends, but this would be the starting point for my album. So I'm going to go through, and the first thing I would do is pull in the images. And I'm going to grab the 3 that I have 5-starred here. And I like to open all of my images at once into Photoshop so that I can see them and know kind of what I'm doing and where I'm going to place them. You don't have to. You can open one at a time. But I know these 3 images are going to go on this page, so I will open all 3 of them. I'm sitting here next to this big monitor, and I'm used to that at home, so I'm like,
Yeah.
I have my little laptop, but I'm sitting next to Brian with this big monitor. I'm kind of liking it. Okay, so first image I'm going to grab. I'm just going to use the Move tool, drag it, and drop it right onto the page. And we will transform, so Control-T to transform this, and we're going to make this a little bit smaller so I can put it in the right spot. I realize some of you, this may be super easy. Some of you may not have a clue what I'm doing, but we will see how we can do here. Okay, on to the right side is going to be your, in your layers palette, you're going to have image 1, image 2, image 3. All of the templates that we have are going to be super simple. They should be all numbered, lettered. They're called whatever they are, so you should have no problems on it. The background's blue. There's the graphic. You can turn anything off and on that you want. We can customize any piece of this that we need to, but I have them done up pretty simple for you. So the first thing is we'll take this image, and I would like to put it on the top so that it's going to be image number 2. So the second one over here, make sure that it's on top of your image. And then we're going to use the clipping mask to clip it to the black box. So hold down Option key, and I don't know on a Windows, Brian, and clipping mask those together.
Yeah, so to clip an image to the mask below it, on, like Whitney said, on the Mac it's Option, and on PC you'd hit the Alt key.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll free transform it to get it in the spot where we want it. And we are done. So I am going to just quickly throw the rest of these on there, and then we will keep moving.
I love watching other photographers work because they just blaze through.
You have to save time in that post-production. Once you get used to it, you just go. So I'm going to put this in image 1. So we're going to clipping mask that one to that, move it where we want it, close that out of there, and then let's drag the last one in.
And while Whitney's doing that, I'll just kind of talk about the benefit of clipping masks. And actually, so for those of you that may be like saying, oh man, what's going on? I actually recorded a video on the On One University, just a short training video that shows how to do exactly what Whitney's doing. Basically what a clipping mask is doing is it binds the image to that particular window so that it doesn't overlay on top of the rest of the template. So it's kind of like it's fitting in there. So you can see how Whitney just arranged them in like 2 seconds.
I'm sitting here I'm going a little too fast almost because I think I need to backtrack a little bit on some of the stuff. I think my husband would kill me if he knew I didn't talk more about this. But this album's already done. It's already a template. It's an 8x8. It's ready to go. It's 24 pages. You may not need that. You may need 12 pages. You may need a larger album. So the first thing that you need to do is define what kind of album you are doing, how many pages you need, And if you're only going to pull certain pages from the template, grab the pages that you're going to use and pull those aside. Then you need to make sure that it is the right size. So these can all be resized. If you need to do an image and do a resize, you can resize it to a 10 by 10 if you need. You can resize it to a 6 by 6 if you need, but make sure you do that ahead of time. The other thing that I didn't touch on was guides and bleeds. If you are doing a press printed book that's going through a press printed, you have to have bleeds and guidelines, and your lab should be able to guide you through that, or have the amounts so that you can drag those bleeds and guides in. This album doesn't have any because I actually sent it through as just regular 8x8 prints, and then I sent it off to be mounted in the album. There's going to be a little bit of bleed, and you're going to lose a little when it gets mounted. I just try to keep things away from the edges too close. This is actually fine. I've printed this album, so it's about a half an inch away, and you're still okay. So make sure you do all of that stuff first. Define your album, make all the number of pages you want, have them all ready. I mean, I'm somebody that will have all of the blank pages all ready to go, and then I will slowly start putting the images on the page as I want. Do that inspiration board, or start with a page, or start with something that you love to get yourself going, and then know what your constraints are. I mean, I know when I do a baby book, it's 24 pages. I know that there's about 8 pages in each section, so that helps kind of define how many images are going to go in those sections. I only have 8 pages to do it in. Okay, I don't want 9 on every page, so I kind of am able to narrow stuff down a little bit better. So I didn't mean to skip past that, but just so you guys know, make sure that the sizes, and know that all of the templates can be adjusted to the size that you need for your lab and your requirements. So if we get this on here, the first thing that bothers me about this is the color. I am not digging the blue with these images. So if I was going to use this as a template, the first thing I would do is change the color and or the background. So 2 different things we could do. The background layer's here, and it's just blue. If we want to change the color of the background, we can use this little guy down here and go right up to solid color. And I'm going to use the eyedropper tool and pull a color out of my image. And this is a lot of ways that I will find the colors for my inspiration board too, like you saw on Pinterest. They were pulling from the images. I will do that as well. Once I get a couple favorite images, I'll grab the green right from the image, and then that's the green that I'll use through the book. So we can do really quick, just like that, and we're done. And you have a new color, and that can be their color theme for your book. The other option we could do is to go ahead and go into photo frame and change the background completely. So let me delete that layer, and we will head right into photo frame. So a little bit about photo frame. A couple people had asked about where I find my little graphics and adornments, and a lot of them are in photo frame. And if you do have photo frame already or haven't had a chance to, it's definitely a project that you need to go through and spend an afternoon and look through it and find the things that you love, find the things that are you, find the things that are your style. There's a baby category. Okay, these are not me. I would never use these. But somebody else's might be exactly what they're looking for. But you need to go through and kind of decide these are the areas that I love, because you could be here all day trying to find one thing for this particular album. I kind of know the areas that I use a lot of. I love the florals. I love some of the grunges. I'm not as much into the ones that are too graphics, like those too perfect on those. I like the little bit different. The whimsy sometimes I will use for seniors, but you kind of have to go through and decide what it is that you like. The Gurus category is a favorite for mine. And is it Kirsty or Kirsty? She's going to kill me. Kirsty?
It's Kirsty.
Kirsty. She has some great backgrounds that I really like, so let's grab one out of here. You can go through and 5-star them, so they're already your favorite, so you already have them ready to go for next time. But I am going to scroll down and grab one of hers. So let's grab this one. Okay, I love you, Brian, and I'm not going to do a tutorial on photo frame. I know that you can make all kinds of adjustments to this background in photo frame as far as changing the color and everything.
Yep.
I prefer to do it in Photoshop, so we're going to go back to Photoshop.
Let's do it.
Instead, so I'm going to go ahead and apply. Obviously, you can, if you guys are more comfortable in photo frame and want to do it that way, you can. I tend to be more of a Photoshop user, so I just grab the graphics and backgrounds from photo frame and pull them right back into Photoshop. Not really a right or wrong answer to that one. It's totally choice. So here we are back to the same problem, it being blue, and I'm not a fan of the blue. So I'm going to go right back down here again and change that solid color back to the green that I had a little bit ago. And you'll see that I've lost the texture of that background. The easiest fix for that is just to go up to your settings. What am I thinking? Sorry. Blending mode. Thank you. And change that to color. And then that will give the green color with still leaving the background. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull that background opacity down just a touch. Okay. And then now you see we've lost our graphic, which is over here. This particular graphic is turned down to 10% on the opacity. So if you wanted to keep it, all you need to do is just pop that up so you can see it a little bit more. I'm going to say let's change that graphic to something else. So let's throw that away and let's head right back into photo frame. And I grabbed the wrong thing.
Happens all the time.
Too many lists there. Okay. Grab back into photo frame and let's grab a different graphic. So I'm going to go back to that Gurus and I'm going to look at some of Vicky's, which is also some that I really like. And we will go ahead and grab, there's actually, let's do this one. Another thing that I will do with my graphics is I may not use them as is, and I'll show you here. Let's pull that above, and I'm going to invert it, so Command-I or Control-I to invert that, and then I'm going to transform that to make it a little bit smaller. But I know this is supposed to be a corner piece, and I will use it in the corner, but I will pull my graphics off the page a little bit. I will move them around. I will just use a piece of them, so it kind of just coming out of the corner, and then I will use that same graphic again, so I will just grab it and duplicate that layer, and I will pull it up, and let's pull it up in this corner, or let's rotate it a little bit. So edit, transform. Make sure if you don't know how to do this, you need to edit, transform, and rotate that. Otherwise, you'll rotate your whole canvas. You just want to rotate that one graphic. We'll rotate it 90 degrees, and we'll pull it up across the top. So I'll do little things like this, where it's not too chaotic. It gives it a little something added to the page without overtaking the page. And you can still pull that opacity down a little bit, so it's not quite as obnoxious. And there you have it. So if you start making changes to a template, I would make sure I dragged those graphics or that graphic back onto my inspiration board so that I can easily grab it and add it and put it on different pages. So you're not every time going back in a photo frame, grabbing another different graphic or trying to remember where you got that graphic for. Or if you wait to work on the album till tomorrow and don't remember, that's why I started the inspiration board. So I would take that graphic and replace it with the one that's here, since that's the new one that I'm going to use. How are we doing?
Doing great.
Do we have any other questions that I can answer?
Oh yeah, there are plenty of them.
Let's do a couple real quick.
Okay. The questions I'm going to ask now are not so much specific to what you just did, but they're more, I guess, business-related ones.
That's okay.
Randy asked a good question where so in terms of your pricing structure, do you charge for a shoot and then for an album, or the shoot and album in one price type of thing?
For my baby plan, it does include an album and 3 sessions. Actually, I have 3 different baby plans to pick from. So depending on which one they choose, they include 3 sessions, or it might include 4 sessions. It does have the album included, some loose prints, baby announcements. I mean, I kind of have them packaged up, but my baby plans that are at Bliss all include this 24-page album at the end, no matter what.
Cool. And Kelly and Dennis asked similar questions. So this was back in the beginning when you were talking about using White House as your print lab and then Renaissance for the books. So do you send the pages to White House for printing and then send those pages over to Renaissance?
Yes. So with Renaissance the book, you actually have an option. There's like 3 options, I think. Option A is you send them prints and they mount them in a book. Option B is you send them files and they print it and put it in the book. Or option C, I think they design it and do it for you. So there's 3 different options that they have. I am a little bit of a control freak, and I'm sure many photographers are, but I, especially with these albums, want that quality check before they get mounted in the book. So I send them to my lab, which is White House. I let them print them. I get the images back, and I do a 3rd time check. I have my husband look at them. I look at them. We make sure the color's good. I make sure the retouching's good. I make sure I didn't mess up any of the text. I mean, we kind of take the time to go through one at a time and make sure the pages look okay. Then I package them up, and I ship them off to New York, and they mount them in a book. It is an extra step. It does cost a little more. It does take a little longer, but in the long term, it's worth it for me than it is to get an album back that I spent $500 on and find out there was a mistake. So that's the way I choose to do it. You can let Renaissance do it. You can have another album company do it for you. I mean, whatever is comfortable for you and how you feel. It depends on the album. I do senior books that I send to White House and just do them in press printed. I mean, there's no quality check. They get printed and mounted and they're done. Those books cost, $60. So it's not as big a deal if there is a mistake, and I have had mistakes before. So these albums I treat a little bit different, kind of how you would a wedding album probably. I mean, if you wanted to make sure you weren't going to make any mistakes, I would treat it the same as you do with weddings if you do shoot weddings.
Cool. I'm going through. There was a question. This always comes up, and I like to talk about it. But can you just talk about your basic? What camera to use? What's your favorite lenses to use? Type of thing.
It doesn't matter, right?
Oh, I know, but everyone,
it's
people
all
like
box with a hole. I don't know. People always ask me that. To be perfectly honest, the tech person is my husband. He is the behind-the-scenes techie. He buys me new cameras, and I just say, okay, whatever. No, it is what you do with it, really. I mean, I have a Canon camera. If you have our Nikon user, awesome. I mean, to me, it doesn't matter, but I don't even know what I have now. 5D Mark II, I think.
Yep.
Really. What else? Lenses. I like to use the ones that let the most light in. I have an 85-1.8 that I use a lot. I have a 70-200 that I use a lot. It just depends.
Well, what in terms of, and this is actually a good question that John asked earlier, and I'm glad he brought it up. So you're doing these physical books. Do you see yourself going to the ebook? Like, I know I have a wedding photographer friend in Boston who is moving to, instead of doing a wedding album book, he builds in the cost of an iPad and custom designs an album. Now that's excessive, but do you see yourself going down the route of an electronic book?
No, and funny that you say that right now because Dan and I have had the same conversation. So my husband Dan, but he says the same thing. You need a digital copy. You need a digital copy. Okay, for me, back to why I do all of this, the albums are so important to me. Holding that piece of art in my hand is important. Seeing that piece of art on my wall is important. Being able to touch it, being able to feel it, knowing that it's there. I know the digital world has taken over. I know that there's Facebook. I know that there's everything. People want to show. People want to do everything. But there's something to be said about that quality book that you can hold in your hand and turn the pages. My moms come in and cry. They see this album and they cry. I'm sorry, if I give them that digital file, I'm not going to get the same emotion than they're holding this significant piece in their hand. I also cannot charge $2,500 for something that they're just going to get on a computer screen. I think that they need to be able to have that thing to pass on to their child. I mean, looking back, I wish I had one of these. I mean, I have the crappy baby book that the photos stuck to the pages that you can't peel them off. I mean, that's what I have, which back in the day, that's what people did. So I think I still want to remember why I do this and why the art part of this, I guess, without letting the digital world totally take over. I mean, it is digital photography. I know that's what we shoot, but it still is important to be able to have some of this.
Yeah, Dennis actually just made a really great quote that I want to share, and he said, seeing a Picasso on your computer is not the same as seeing it at the museum. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Awesome. There's something about the tactile response. And you're right. You give a mom, no matter, new iPads, high-resolution screens and everything, but there's something cold about it. And whereas they can feel and to that point, actually, there was a question that Kelly asked, and a few people asked, so you send the images to White House, what kind of paper do you have them printed on?
I actually one up the paper a little bit. Everything that I send out the door is on linen texture. So I pay a little extra to have it printed that way, partly because you can't go to wherever and get that printed, So I have people that will say, I love your prints, oh my goodness. And same thing with the albums. It gives them a little something more. They have that beautiful linen texture when you're looking at them. That's my style. That fits my studio. I mean, their prints, when they're holding their loose prints in their hand, they enjoy it. To me, it kind of one-ups it a little more, so I'm able to get a little bit more money, and they feel like they're getting something of a little bit more value.
Yep. It's a type of thing where I think they're already investing in it, in the book. You might as well give them, it's kind of like penny wise, pound foolish. Like, you're spending this amount of money, might as well, let's make this memorable. It's your kid, it's your baby. And you've already gone ahead and created the beautiful images. Let's finish it up. Let's complete the circle.
It's not very often that I don't sell one of these if the mom comes in for a pre-consultation while she's pregnant or has the brand new baby and comes in and sees one of these and is able to hold it and says, of course I want one of these for my child. They are a story. It's the modern version of a baby book. You know, I am a new mom. I know how hard it is to keep track of all this stuff. I mean, I have a calendar that I'm scribbling things on so that when she does make it to a year, I can create her album. You know, people don't have the time necessarily anymore. They invested in me. They allow me to help them do this and help them tell the story. I might go a little bit further. I kind of want to talk a little bit about the text. So we talked a little bit about fonts and just text in albums. I have a lot of text in my albums, more so than most people do. And I'm not going to lie, it is a pain. I mean, it's an investment. It is time. You have to get this text in. You have to do the proper fonts. You have to get the story or the quote, or you have to look for stuff. I mean, it's not the easiest thing in the world, and it is the thing that will get pushed aside by photographers because it's a pain. I mean, you're becoming more and more graphic designers, and now we're becoming, copy editors and all of that. So what I'll do with my text is I have my clients send me everything via email, and I copy and paste it. I let them know that everything's going copy and paste it. They send me as much stuff as they want. If they don't have stuff, I will put in some quotes that I have that I'll copy and paste from the internet or wherever I find them, but I will make sure I don't retype anything. That's my first help. I will also let my clients see the album before I send it to print to give it a once over. If there's any mistakes after they've given the thumbs up, it's on them. Back to the quality check, that's another thing I'll do is have reread it again. I read every piece of copy that's in it just to make sure that the punctuation's there, the quotations are there, or anything that's needed to be in that. Got a question?
No, I'm just looking at, you're good to go.
Okay. It is time that's involved, I'm not going to lie, but in something like this, it is worth it. At least for me, it is worth it to get that in there because that is telling the whole story. It's not just telling it with images. You're also giving more. And the letters on my baby book, that's killer. I have the letter off of this, so you can't read it, but the mom and dad wrote a letter that was just beautiful and heartfelt, and it was for the child. They write this to their baby. So you know where to find fonts. I would keep it very consistent with fonts and text in an album. In the templates, they're already there. There's 1 to 2 fonts probably within. You need to be really careful about scripty font. Sorry. If you get too small on the scripty, it's very hard to read. So you want to make sure it's more of a legible font. One thing that I've done in the past is when you're working on a computer screen, it's really hard to tell if the font is too small or too large. I mean, 12 point is usually fine. This is actually 12 point. This is completely legible. It looks great. But even if you have a printer at home where you could just shoot a page out to look at it just to make sure, that can sometimes help just to make sure you have it about the right size, or if you need to make it a little bit larger if you can't read it. When there's a lot of text, I don't like to make it too large. I mean, this is probably 10 point or 12 point. I might actually open that and peek. I think it might be, this is 12. I think it's the same. But when they're getting a lot of text in there, you do need to keep it within 10 to 12 point, and it's 12 point. So it's completely legible.
Milena has a good question I want to just jump in here with. Actually, Milena and Kim have kind of similar questions. First with Milena's. So these albums, at what point does the client see it? Do they ever see it, like the pages before you assemble it, or do they not see anything until the final product?
They get to give a final okay on the album before I send it to print. So once I have the album complete, I will either have them come in if that's an option, or I will send them a PDF that's not printable. But I'll at least let them look at it, take the time to go through the text, make sure that they love it as it is, and then I will send it off once they give the thumbs up. I will allow 1 to 2 changes without charging, meaning I don't like that image, can you swap it for this image? However, this happens on a very rare occasion because I'll have them come in prior to and pick their favorites. So they already selected their favorites. They're already in there. So it's very rare, and they probably don't even remember at their newborn session what their favorites were. So as long as the story's there, as long as they're happy, as long as it is told, they're fine. I do want them to check the text, however, and make sure that all of the text is proper. So they do get to see it, then they send it off, and then they'll get the final album.
Cool. And then Kim asks, do they get the digital images?
Nope, I am one of those mean people. I do not sell digital files. So there's no digital that goes out. I sell only finished prints to my clients. Personal preference. It's just, that's not the studio I want to be. I really back to that art thing. I want them to have finished product. They're coming to me for that. They're coming to me for the albums or the wall portraits or the finished piece. I do have a lot of people that will compliment, the quality, and I want to make sure that I maintain that. So I'm a meanie, but no, I do not give away digital files.
It's not all that uncommon because I know I have a lot, again, wedding photographer friends typically, they refuse to. And actually some of the more leading photographers, like Sal Sincata and stuff, you will never see him give away a digital print because it's your image, you took the image of them and you give them digital print, they go to Walmart, they print it for 36 cents on a 4x6, and it just, it sullies your experience. Whereas here, it may cost more money, but you control the image and you control the output.
Exactly. And that's why I said I try to one-up it just with the texture and just, sending it to a great lab. I guess to me, if a client comes in and all they want is the digital files, they're just not my client. And that's okay. I mean, there's how many of us out there? We all have our way of doing business. We all have our style. We all have what we offer. That's how we get our clients. So for me, that's just not my client. And that's okay.
And if the client wants 2 copies of the album, John's asking do you provide multiple albums?
Yes, that's a very good question. I actually do offer that at a discount. So I figure that my time's not there, so I kind of take the cost and triple it, I have a price for that. So just figure your design time is gone and just make sure it's a duplicate copy with no changes. And I've had grandparents and stuff that want a copy.
Here's one last question because I know you want to. There's all these great questions, and I think these are the best parts of webinars. Is the interaction. And Victoria asked, so she asks specifically, do you create Facebook timeline covers for your clients? So, and I'm going to expand on that, but do you, how I just said how wedding photographers, they don't give proofs? Others I know actually give low-res kind of Facebook images.
Yeah, I do a little bit of that. I have a Facebook page. I have a friend page, actually, that I will tag people in. And I will always tell them I'll upload a couple images from their session and that they can use them on their Facebook page. I make sure that they're told not to crop them, and they look just like the ones on my blog. If you go visit my blog, I have a border around them. They have my logo, and they have my website. So I tell them that's their freebie. They can use it on there. Please do not crop it. And I already have it, in sRGB, it's already web-sized, web-ready, looks great. It's not going to be good as a print. And I also, the new timeline just started, I do offer timeline photos if people want them. I had a few clients try to use their images for the timeline, and it just does not work. So I will be offering those, and I just charge for it. So I just make it worth it, charge for it, make them something custom so it still looks like it came from me. And then it's a little bit good advertising as well.
Cool. All right. Please
so, I could just keep working on pages. I'm not sure what you guys are interested in hearing at this point, but it was more about inspiration. I can go into another album. Do you want to talk about a different album? I mean, those were more about baby books. Just on a different one for you guys. This is another album template that's available, and this is on a single session. So this might be good for some of you that don't do babies or don't have, baby plans. This is a little boy, and his family session. So one single session, I do a 12-page 8x8 album. Doesn't need too many images. I'm going to flip through it here a little bit. I still include a little bit of text. Not as much as the baby books go into this one. You do want to keep it simple. You still need to make sure you're making money and not spending too much time working on these albums.
Here's a great question. While you're going through this, William asked, so let's say you're designing this template, and the parents have a shot of the baby that they really want and that you didn't take.
The only thing that I have allowed is
No, it's a great. I love. That's a great question.
Is that?
The sonogram.
Obviously, I didn't take that picture. No, I mean my albums are my work. That's back to the same thing. It's back to the quality. I'm sorry. I mean they can make their own album. This particular project, it's my images. So, but I will do the sonogram picture or whatever. It's fine. It's cute.
I really want to also, so like as Whitney talks, I pick up on a lot of things that we need to look past beyond what Whitney's teaching and listen to the way Whitney answers the questions. And my point is there's confidence there, and Whitney's confident that I think one of the hardest things that any of us here have gone through is getting to that point where you could admit to yourself and proudly and confidently say you are a photographer, whether you're a working photographer, professional photographer, or photographer. And so I think a lot of people are timid to say, like, where you would cave in and say, you know what, yeah, sure, just give me the image and I'll put it in there. Whereas Whitney is showing through this that this is a product that is comprised of her work to create the template plus the images themselves. And I respect you for that. I really do.
I think that comes with time.
It does.
I mean, it's been a lot of years, but you don't do that at the beginning. At the beginning, you want to do every favor in the book and make everybody happy. And I think there comes to a point where I can't make everybody happy, and not everybody's my client, and I'm okay with that, you know. And it did take a long time for me to even get there. I have done a really hard job trying to maintain my style and my integrity and who I am as an artist and what it is I want to provide, and being okay with that. You know, having the person say, oh, well, if I can't get the negative, you know, and I have to go, well, sorry, that's not what I do, but here, this person will and this person will, and that's okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with people doing their business the way they want to do it. So this is just the way I choose, and I choose what's important to me and what I want to give back to my clients. You know, time is very important to me now, especially having a new baby, and utilizing my time to not be in working on Photoshop till 2 o'clock in the morning. I can't do that anymore.
Right.
I'm up at 2, although I probably could. No, I don't have time for that anymore. I mean, now I really have to focus on what's important to me, the clients that are important to me, and the clients that want me and that fit me. I mean, that's been a big word I've been using lately with my clients, is just if we fit, you know, and I'm interviewing them as much as they're interviewing me. So if we don't fit, that's okay. I mean, I had a client I met this last week that was fabulous. She walked out and I said, I love her, can't wait for her to call. And she did. She called back and booked. So, I mean, I kind of know too when I'm meeting with people, I don't think this is going to work. You don't really, my style. I mean, I don't want to be told what to do or told how to pose or told, you know, well, I think you need to crop this and do that. I mean, my clients should be trusting me to do that, trusting me to create for them. I have clients that come and say, I don't know, I like these images, make me something. And I will make them a custom collage for their wall, or, you know, I'll make them some product that I think that they would, you know, really enjoy. And that's being in tune to my clients, because again, I know that they're here, coming to me for a reason, so I'm able to take care of them well.
Right. They're not looking for a photographer, they're looking for a Bliss studio.
Correct.
And
Correct.
And you know, Jim says he has a good point. He says when you start out, it's hard to say no to a prospective client. And let me tell you something. That first time you say no, like when I was doing commercial work, and the client just was being, you know, obnoxiously like expecting the world, and I had to turn the entire gig down, and it wasn't, you know, it didn't break my year or anything, but that was the first. I remember saying no for the first time.
It's heart-wrenching.
It's heart-wrenching. It's the scariest thing, but I tell you something. It's the greatest one of the greatest lessons a photographer can go through. You'll go through it, guaranteed. It's just knowing what your self-worth is.
Yeah, I totally agree. So it's a very important point.